So we live in a society today where having sex is called getting a kill. Young people are having to fight with everything they have to not let into their will. Drowning themselves with sorrows past failures and nail, letting their minds trip and float into a fantasy world by marijuana, acid, or heroin, and trying to not get into jail. Insecure children walk to schools where hell breaks loose, and they are caught up wondering what is truth and what is not. Being faced with temptation that even adults find hard to turn down or make it look like it's a battle they've never fought. This battle is not of flesh and blood, but the spirits of glorious light and suffocating darkness, and actions are just proof. Growing up in a Christian home where she couldn't have asked for better parents that taught her how to live a life after God's own heart. Christianity was a lifestyle that was shown with integrity, talked about in deep theological discussions, and lived out by picking up the cross daily, or so taught. Walking into senior year, who could have ever guessed what would trip her up and have her caught? An illness that would change her life, and the purpose of why she was living was only a part. A new day was another mountain. The daily struggles and temptations were like an overflowing fountain. A blank face, expressionless, lifeless, as she went on through the motions. What is life anymore? Why should I live? She asked. She just wanted to cease living and drown her life in a potion. It came to that day when she decided it wasn't worth living. February 18th, 2013, I was in a bathroom looking at myself in the mirror, believing the lies Satan was speaking about how I was seen. Worthless, having no purpose, unloved. The list goes on. Leaving no note, no last words, I attempted suicide by overdosing, but nothing happened and I woke up unharmed at dawn. A friend forced me to go to the school nurse, but on this particular day it was a doctor who was never to be seen again, telling me there's no physical reason why I'm still living, but obviously there's a greater purpose of why I am, left me feeling foreign. This took me back. All of the feelings of loneliness disappeared suddenly when knowing that Jesus was there through it all, right to the end. He was taking me out of my dark hole, picking me up out of the dirt, placing a crown on my head and saying, "You're my daughter who I've been waiting for to come back and to go through life courageously being my friend." Now that I'm crowned, there's a new level and standard that I'm held at, to take on what the Lord desires for a child of his, and nothing less than that. God will be with me to the very end of the age, no matter what any one person may say. Let us pick up the cross. The time may be tough, and when it feels like you've taken a loss, remember that you are fighting and where you've been taken out of. Courage is only tested in tough times, so do not shrink from your comfort when your comfort feels a tug and a shove. So that's a little bit of my testimony, but this is where like it shook me. Like that's when I was at the end and when I tried to commit suicide and I was in my bathroom and I took the medication and the doctor said, like, there's no reason why you're still living and why you should still be here. And I was just like, in that moment, I was going through depression through, I don't know, maybe 6 months. I'm usually a super bubbly person, and I usually love laughing, and I love like talking to people and that. But then for those 6 months, I isolated myself. I went to my bedroom right when I got home from school. I didn't really talk to people when I was at school. My marks just like plummeted. And you know, the thing is that but it took me to go to the very end of myself to find God. It took me when I was in that doctor's or that nurse's office and they said that there's no reason why you're still living, that God was real. God became real to me in that moment. And I felt the presence. I felt him come in. And right then I said, okay, God, I'm gonna live a life for you. So I decided to get my life on track, and then I realized it was just like, oh, I can't do this by myself, you know. I'm just like, I'm in this like pit, and I'm like, okay, God, like, where are you? So you saved me. What are you gonna do with me? And so then I tried really, really hard. I tried really, really hard to get my life back with God, but it took me just immersing myself in a Christian place with like people who are stronger than me, and me actually realizing and encountering God for myself. And it took him speaking to me to actually realize what this walk looks like and why I should walk with him. And Phil remembers this. So there's like this one time I hadn't been coming to youth. I hadn't been like doing anything with the church. I like totally forgot about that. I was partying. I was doing everything I shouldn't be doing. And then I remember Phil was like preaching. I don't even know what it was on. But he was over in the corner, and he was just like, if you need somebody to talk to, if you need somebody to, I feel like some people have like something that they need to share. So I went over to him, and I was just like crying and weeping, and then I was just like, and I told him everything that had been going on, and he said, hon, you're loved, and I don't know if you know that to the degree that you need to know it, but you're loved, and that just like shook me up. And so I've been through this I don't know, it's coming up to a year where I've actually started walking with God, and the way my life has changed is incredible, and it's something that I want to share, and I want to be able to share that with other people. And when you think that you're hit like rock bottom, or you think that like nothing's good, or like everything's just like, wow, like God, like I don't even know if you're out there, but I like don't know what to do with myself. Like I don't know how to act. I don't know how to go on and go through school and going through with my friends and them talking to me and us getting in fights. And it's just like, hey God, how do I handle the stress of life? And the thing is that we are made for love. Everyone knows that everyone loves differently and in the most unique ways that creates the individual that we are. If everyone knows and gets that, why are we settling for normalcy and trying to blend in with the crowd? Why are we trying to be that person that just mellows out and just kind of like fades to the back? Because that was me when I was going through depression. I never really wanted to be noticed. I just wanted to blend in with the crowd so I didn't have to stand out. And then, and I became really rebellious. I was involved with cops. I was involved with drinking. I was involved with partying. I was involved with drugs. And, but the thing is that I was settling for a standard of normalcy and trying to fit in rather than actually fulfilling what God had sent for me to do and what He made for me to do. And so we're all created to stand out and flaunt how we were created and our Creator. Flaunting is a strong word and it can lead towards an obnoxious side. But I want to use it in the context of walking with our Father. And so how often, this is something, so I was having my devos with God, and it was, I don't know, a couple of weeks back. That's when I told Phil, I was just like, Phil, I gotta talk to you. And then and then it was like this revelation. I was just sitting in my bed, and I was looking at my closet, and so I was looking at my closet, and God was just like, He just kind of started speaking to me, and what He was saying was just like, so how often do we buy something new, and we get this rad sweater, we're so stoked, and then we wear it, and we want to flaunt it to our friends, and just be like, hey, look at the nice things I have, hey, look at what I bought, and what I can afford. And we're flaunting our clothes rather than, and He was just like, new Christians, they're stoked on Jesus. They're just radical. They want to share Him. They want to be with Him. They want to spend time with Him. They want to be in the Word. They want to, and all that. But then there's this point where somehow our clothes get old, and so we don't want to flaunt them, and somehow we don't want to share Jesus as much as we did before. And and it's just kind of there seems to be something that triggers, and I even want to go as far as the decaying of value of Jesus in our lives, and how we don't value Him as much as we should, and our clothes they start getting ratty, they start getting dirty, so we're like, oh, they're my work clothes, or they're clothes that I can go play in or do whatever. But then, and that's the same with Jesus, where Jesus is in our lives and we're so excited, but then somehow something snaps that we don't find Him that important to share with the person on the next to us on the bus, that He's not that important for Him to share with people around us and for people in our work and for people in our school. And I was that person in high school. I never really wanted to talk about Jesus. I never really wanted to go outside my comfort zone and start talking about the person who actually died for me and who actually created you and created this world. I didn't want to talk about him because it wasn't real to me. I didn't have the relationship that I needed. And the relationship that I needed was an encounter and like hearing his voice. And so, you know, when Monday hits after like encountering Jesus and like that type of thing, and that's sick, like we're a new Christian and that type of thing, and Monday hits, and then and then kind of reality slaps us in the face, and oh yeah, all your friends are still unsaved, and we're reminded that there's a dark side, and Satan is still rooting for you. You know how people say, like, why do bad things happen to me? And I never had an answer, but I feel like I got a glimpse of what that was. And God was just saying, just because people are like, why do bad things happen to me? Well, it's because there's still Satan. There is light, there is darkness. There are angels, there are demons. There is God, and there is Satan. So there's still another person who's rooting for you and rooting for your life. But it's the thing is that we have to start rooting, like we have to be on God's side. And it's when we walk with God's side that our lives need to change. After we become saved and after we actually dedicate our lives to God, you know, that's when we start walking out our relationship with God. And so, so like when you feel like you're in the place of wanting to flaunt Jesus, you know, ask yourself, these questions. It's just like, where's my heart at? Like, have I lost value for God in my life? Like, and why is it like that? What brought me to this place where I don't find that Jesus is enough for me in a day-to-day level, and I don't want to talk to him or talk about him? And so, you know, allow God to reveal the things in your life that has been hindering you. You know, and the thing is that once you've had the revelation, let God pour his love into you and let your walls come down. So just because of all the things that I was doing and the things that I'm not super proud of, and the things that when I walked away from God and be involved in things, you know, I was ashamed. I was ashamed of what I had been doing. I was ashamed of my day-to-day being at home and trying to act like a Christian, and like just so that my parents would like not get on my back, but they really didn't know what was going on because I wasn't talking to them. But then the thing was that then when I was in school, I was totally a different person, so to speak. I was still quiet. Like I never really swore at home, but I like swore like a trucker in high school, and that's still something I'm dealing with. And that goes to say that just because you become a Christian doesn't mean that all your past has totally fallen away. It's a work in progress. It's something you have to work at. It's not something that like, sure, yeah, you have Jesus in your life and it's so much easier, but it's something that you have to work on every single day. It's still to this day, I've had a brutal time with spending time with Jesus. You know, and it's just like, how do we become like someone? We get around them. And if I'm not spending devotional times with him, how am I going to start acting like him? And so it's when I don't spend time with him, that's when I start acting like people in the world. And somehow swearing comes right away when I like go and fall. Or somehow when something goes wrong, I get super upset and I just want to shut down or I explode. Rather than having a calm spirit, rather than knowing that God's in control, rather than knowing that Jesus is still there through it all. You know, I've got testimonies that it's just like I was in trouble with the cops, and if they had so much on me. If they actually, I could have been in juvie, and if they actually put me in juvie, then I would never be in the place that I am today. But the thing is that after I became a Christian, God started revealing about all these things that he was there even when I didn't feel him. And I didn't know that I didn't know, and I couldn't feel him in the moment. It's not like, oh wow, I have the warm tingles, like. And I couldn't feel him because I was deliberately walking away from him. But it was after I got the revelation of God that he was always there. That's when I saw, like, thinking back, I'm like, wow, God was there when those two cops came to the car. Like, God was there when I was, well, obviously trying to commit suicide and taking my life into my own hands. God was there because he didn't allow me to die. And so, but the thing is that it's still hard. And And the thing is that our lives aren't our own. So why are we making decisions like God is even in the picture? Our lives are to be laid down at the throne of God every day, saying, I'm at your will. God, what you have for me, I will do. Instead of waking up in the morning and before rushing out the door, God, keep me safe and help me have a good day. And it's like, it's just like the first one is relationship, rather the second one is selfish desires of trying to have a good life. Well, kind of like a wake-up call. We're not here just to have a good life. We're here to proclaim Jesus. And so sometimes we don't have good days. Sometimes we do have struggles. And it doesn't mean that like now I have Jesus in my life that all my struggles, like I just live the perfect life. I just hear angels every single day. I struggle. Phil, I go into his office and he'll be like, what's up? I was just like, hey. He's like, what's wrong? And then I always have like a bajillion things to say. And the thing is that that when reality hits us, and after, that's the thing that triggers, is that when we become a Christian, and then, wow, all of a sudden, somehow Jesus isn't important anymore. That's when we haven't been actually walking out on God. We've been walking out on our own strength. Life is good with God. I don't want to make that, life with God isn't great and that, it is really good. It just shows in different ways. And when we're going to start when are we actually going to start taking ownership of a relationship? When you don't feel like having devotions with God, when you don't feel like talking to that person beside you, when are you actually going to take an ownership? And when God says, speak to that person, when are you going to start talking to them? What does it take for God to come in to your life so much that you actually start walking out his will for you and what he's created you to be? He created you to be loved by him. And when are we going to start waking up and knowing that God's love for us? I think sometimes this hit me a while back, and I don't even think we have sometimes the base to call ourselves Christians, because instead of letting people we hang out with determine that we are. If we don't give them anything to base off our assumptions, we're failing as followers of Christ. So, I was that kind of person where, I was in school, and they're like, oh, aren't you, religious? Aren't you a Christian? And I was just like, and I said yes. But then when it got to the point where I was deliberately walking away from God, and they're like, well, aren't you Christian? Why are you swearing? And the thing is that they realized right then that they were convicting me, that they were the ones saying, hey, I thought you were supposed to live a different life than what we're living. I thought you were supposed to be living don't swear, do good things, but what's going on with Younie right now? Younie's going to the parties. Why is she getting drunk with us? Why is she swearing? And one of my best friends in high school, he was just like, hey, it was at a rugby practice, and he was just like, Kim, why are you swearing? And I was just like, I don't care. I don't care. The thing is just that, he was convicting me, and it just came in a different form. Instead of Jesus coming and convicting, sometimes he brings people along that aren't even Christian and then don't even know his name to come and convict us, because they know that we're supposed to be living differently than they are. And so when it comes down to, our walk with God, what we should be doing is not being yeah, I'm a Christian. Instead of letting the people around us find out that we're a Christian through our actions. And that's something that, and so maybe we can't dress the same. Maybe we can't act the same. Maybe we can't get drunk anymore. Maybe we can't smoke weed. And it doesn't mean that just because we can't do all these things, but the thing is that God fulfills those things. When we start living for God, God starts fulfilling those things, because we're trying to fill God's part in our life with those things rather than actually letting God come into our life. So there's this quote that says, courage is not simply one of the virtues, but the form of every virtue at the testing point. And that's by C.S. Lewis. So something that, I think that I've just been like mulling around in my mind. It's just like, okay, how do I walk this walk then? Like, how do I become courageous? Like, how do I actually step out of my comfort zone and be like, yeah, Jesus, I am living for you, and I do want to share you because you filled my void that I was trying to take in my own hands. You know, like when, I don't know, this is something that I had to like change, where it's just like, when I went to parties, I would dress a certain way. I'd wear different clothes, and then when I went to church on the odd occasion, I would definitely wear the more modest things because I thought that was right. But the thing was, is that I was living a double life. I wasn't living a life actually for God. I was just trying to, you know, get away with the bare minimum and trying to live one life and then trying to live another life in the church. But the thing is that God says that He sees you, and He knows that He knows every inch of your heart. And so He knew that I wasn't being real. He knew that I wasn't actually living to my full potential that He wanted for me. And, you know, like, so I was just like, hey, like, what does it look on a day-to-day basis? And the thing is that, like, it came to me, it starts with your little decisions. It starts with, am I going to wear that shirt? Am I going to wear that shirt? That shows more of my chest, but that shows less. So what shirt am I going to choose? Am I trying to stumble the guys? Am I trying to get attention from the guys, but that I don't need? Because that attention comes from God. And because I know that I'm loved way more than any man on this earth can love me, that's when I start choosing the other shirt and the more modest shirt. And that's because I know that I'm loved and I don't need attention. And something, too, that everyone struggles with is that flirting and lusting is from guys or girls is what you're trying to get out of somebody else, rather than loving is actually what can I give you. So and that's something that, you know, I'm still trying to like walk up every single day. It's just like, what am I doing with my peers around me? Am I loving them, or am I being selfish? So I mean, like, there's the scripture that I think is pretty cool. So it's 1 Thessalonians 5:16-24. And it says, be joyful always. Pray continuously. Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. Do not put out the Spirit's fire. Do not treat prophecies with contempt. Test everything. Hold on to the good and avoid every kind of evil. May God Himself, the God of peace, sanctify you through and through. May your whole spirit, soul, and body be kept blameless at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. The one who calls you is faithful, and He will do it. You know, and I was just like, okay, God, so how do I pray continuously? Because I'm not going to just be like speaking to you all throughout the day. I'm not going to be like just mumbling things to you. Like, that didn't make sense to me. Because and something that what He was saying to me was just that praying to me is also just obeying me. And it's in every single decision. Every decision we make, it's either we're going on God's side or we're going on Satan's side. And, you know, it's like the decisions, the little decisions, being obedient. And obedience is so hard because we have a flesh. We have a part inside of us. We're a fallen world. None of us are perfect. And, you know, it's like when do we, when do we start making the little decisions and starting actually being obedient to Him? That's what it means, praying continuously. And be joyful always. You know, people are just running after happiness. People are just trying to, they crave happiness. But the thing is that happiness is fleeting while joy is everlasting. And joy is from God, and happiness is from man. That doesn't mean that when you have joy, you feel happiness. But joy that's when you're in a bad circumstance and you're like, okay, God, I have no idea how I'm going to get through this. But I still know that you are faithful, and I still know you're there, and I still know that you're going to be able to take me out of this, and that you are going to fulfill your will through me, and that my life is not my own, it's now yours. And it's starting to be joyful in those times. Like Sarah Lamb and Amanda. Like, they went through like a hell period with their, like, with family. And yet the thing was, is that she was coming and she was still worshiping. And I would say that's joy, that's not happiness, because what she was going through wasn't giving her like happiness. She wasn't happy about the situation her family was in, but it was because she knew that God was more faithful, and God was the one who had control, that she was still coming in here and she was still being strong, and she was still walking out the love that God had for her. And walking with God doesn't mean that it's just all about rules and regulation, but it's being obedient to what the Father has spoken to us and like throughout the day. And you either make two decisions: one, making a relationship stronger with God, or two, walking away from Him. So every choice that you make, and whether you choose obedience, you're walking towards God, and if you're not, then you're just taking one step back from Him. So when they start, like with me, if I don't have my devotional time, I'm not grounded with God, so I start making poor decisions. And then it was to the point that when I'm all the way back here, and I'm like, okay, God, how did I get into this mess? And He was just like, oh yeah, because you forgot about me, because you weren't walking out the potential that you had and what I give you. And it's just the decisions. It's literally the littlest decisions in your life. And it's just knowing that you are loved. And once you walk out and knowing that you are loved, you don't need these other things to be filling you up. And hearing God's voice is a huge part of the relationship with God. People say, oh, well, I tried. I prayed to Him, and I was just like, God, let me hear your voice. I just want to hear your voice. I hear it's really cool. Like, I hear it's, like, great for my relationship with you. And it's just like, and then they wait for 10 minutes, and then they walk away, and they're like, okay, God, you're not real. Well, what do you mean? You waited for 10 minutes. What happened to persistence in this world? What happened, when we have iPhones and we can get anything at our fingertips, and it's like 10 seconds away, and then you sit there for 10 minutes, it all like already feels like a year, and you're like, okay, God's not there. Sometimes I think God's kind of like, He likes kicking it old school, and He was just like, well, how much do you want me? Like, how much do you desire? He wants to know. He wants to know our heart, and He wants to know our inner desires. He already knows them, but He wants us to speak it to Him. He's there. He's been through it all. And so I remember when I was 6 years old, and there was like a pastor, and he was like speaking over someone, and he was like kind of reading his mail. So he was like, God was downloading to him and speaking, and he was being able to speak into this guy's life, and it was bang on. Everything was right. He was just like, I've never told anyone that. How do you know that? And he was crying, and I was just like, wow. Like, I remember sitting like in the seats with like my parents around me, and I was just like, I want to be that person. I want to be that person that hears God. And so every time I saw someone who was doing that, or I saw people giving words to other people, and it's to uplift the people around you. And every time I saw that, I was like, God, I want that. God, I want that. I want to be able to do that. I want to hear your voice. And I want you to become more real to me than just now, than what I'm at right now, this level that I'm at. And it took 6 years. When I was 12 years old, I remember God, I got this like motion. I don't know, like it was just like this thought process, I guess. And it was just like, but it gave me like, it energized my entire body, and I didn't know what it was until God gave me a scripture. I remember this. So I was 12 years old. So it took 6 years for me for God to show up and to be able to, and then download. And so I got to like hear His voice, and I was like stoked. And that doesn't mean that it took 6 years for me. That doesn't mean that it's going to take 6 years for you guys. But I just want to make a point where I was persistent, and every time I saw it, I wanted it. And I told God that I wanted it. And so it's just like, yeah, like God. Like, I want that. I desire that. I want to hear your voice. And once you hear God's voice, that's what keeps me going. Because it's like when, like right now, I'm in like kind of a stressful time, like trying to move into another country. and like going to the States, and I've got so much stuff like to get ready that I didn't know. Like, I'm such a naive little girl. Like, I was just like, oh wow, like I can do this. And then like my parents are like, you need God for this, hun. Like, but the thing is just like, I like every single day, I'm like, okay, God, I need you. Like, I need you in my life. And if it wasn't for him still speaking to me every single day that I'm supposed to be going down to the States, I wouldn't be able to do it. I wouldn't be able to do it. And it's God's faithfulness that every time I'm at my end of the rope, God comes in. And it's because I need him. I need to hear his voice, because that's what keeps me going. So like if you don't hear like God's voice like a lot, or if you like want to hear his voice, like be persistent, ask, keep on asking, because he will give it to you. He doesn't just like not speak to some people and then speak to others. He wants to speak to all of his children. So I have all right, I just have a little bit more. Okay. The reason why it's worth sacrificing what we want and being obedient to God is because of the love of the Father, what he's done for us. You know, like we're living in a world where there are two sides, and I would rather be on the winning side. I'd rather be on God's side rather than Satan's side. So let's start acting like it, taking ownership of a relationship with God, putting him first in our lives and being obedient to him, which is where he belongs, and him being number one. And let's start loving people around us well, which is hard. Every single day I struggle with it. It's worth it. It's so worth it. Just being courageous and standing up for what we believe. Let's start being radical lovers of God, and he was a God that like created us and died for us and will always be with us. We were made for loving him. We were made and meant to be in relationship with him. Everything we do should not be because we feel like we have to, but because of the love. Start believing what God has done for us and start walking it out. I just have a video, and I just want to show it to you. And this is something that once I saw this video, I literally listened to it every single day for a month. And I needed it to soak in. I needed it to soak in to me and to get the revelation. And it was just literally knowing that I was loved. And so if you could just roll the video, that'd be cool.
We see the story of Jesus going to the cross, and everything seems to kind of be hand in hand. And then there's this one character that seems to interrupt the narrative. His name's Barabbas. We don't even know much about him except that he's a murderer, a leader of an insurrection, a rebel. And why he's even mentioned, sometimes I'm not so sure. It's like, what? This is about Jesus going to the cross. So in this moment, Pilate thinks, I hold the destinies of these two men in my hand. I know the Jews have a tradition that on a holy day, I will release one of the prisoners on death row. Pilate stands on this audacious stage, who now presents Jesus, Son of the living God, versus Barabbas, the thug and rebel. He says, all right, who do you want? This is blasphemy. This has gone too far. There's no comparison. This is a rightful prisoner, a man who should be on death row. He's a rebel against Rome. He leads a rebellion. He murders people. He's a bad man. He's a thug and he's a crook. He deserves the chains and he deserves the crucifixion. Jesus, what has he done but heal, restore, deliver, set free, open blind eyes, open deaf ears, heal the lame and the leper? What has Jesus done? Who do you want? We want Barabbas. Yeah, give us Barabbas. People say, give us Barabbas. The Roman soldiers come up and they put the key in and they unlock Barabbas from his chains and shackles. And he walks down the platform, welcomed by all of his thug friends. Yeah, the people love me. Yeah, that's right. I don't even know who this Jesus guy is, but all I know is my people love me. There seems to be no conscience in Barabbas. There's no record of him turning to Jesus and saying, I owe you everything now, for you have set me free. No, I don't see any of that in Barabbas. And God knew that. Jesus stood there, silent, for he knew the will of the Father. He said, it's fine, Father. Let him have Barabbas. For Jesus knew that the Father would have to treat Jesus like Barabbas so he could treat Barabbas like Jesus. Barabbas thought it was the people that set him free. No, 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 no. It was the love of the Heavenly Father. When I look at the story, I realize who Barabbas really is. That's me. That's you. That's us. And I felt, I was reading this the other day, and I felt God speak to me. I love Barabbas. I love him. But God, he's bad, man. I love him. And I wanted him to go free. But didn't you know that he probably would have never acknowledged the free gift? Yeah, but I love Barabbas. For while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. God sent his son for Barabbas, even the one he knew would walk away from Jesus and his free gift and never come back. He loves them. And the nerve, the gall, and the audacity of believers to think, I got saved by grace, but now that I'm in this deep, dark place of bondage, I better work hard to get myself out. What? That's the opposite of the gospel. Are you bound? Are you held under the power of this temptation, this sin? You feel like it's controlling you? What are you gonna do? I'm gonna shake myself free. Stop it! No, you won't. You're no match for the powers of hell, and the urges of sin will not overcome it, and you will never overcome it. You'll just be another statistic. There's no answer within yourself. Your own marriage, your own goodness, your own discipline, your own devotion will not save your marriage and will not save your kids. There's only one. And he's the one that took your place. He's the one that stood silently on the platform with Pilate and said, yes, let him have Barabbas. Take me. How many times have I stood on that platform with Pilate and Jesus, and I'm the Barabbas, and they start to take my chains off, and I say, no, I deserve this. I deserve the guilt. I deserve the shame. I deserve the consequence. I deserve it. Jesus seems to look at me and say, no, son, let me have it. Let me have your sin. Let me have your pain. No, God, I did it to myself. I deserve it. My marriage won't make it. This is what I deserve. I deserve divorce. I deserve poverty. I deserve sickness. I deserve it all. No. God, I'm so ashamed. Give me your shame. But God, what if I do it again? I'll still be here. Oh, God, I don't want to hurt you. I love you. I don't want to do this anymore. Give me your sins, son. This is all we got. It's all I got. It's all you got. We can play games. We can play church games. We can pretend like some people are better than others and that's why they're blessed, or we can all come to the honest conclusion that it's God. And it's God alone. The greatest challenge is not your discipline, your devotion, your focus. Your greatest challenge is believing the gospel. Could it be that there's a God with a love so scandalous, so wide, so deep, so vast, so high, so expansive, so welcoming, so inclusive. Let me have your sin, son. Okay. And I give him my sin. And I stand in this empty space of forgiveness and acceptance while Jesus walks off to the cross that I deserve. I see him walking to the post to be whipped. As I stand a free man, all the attention is turned now. And I feel the love of God saying, go, son, live your life. I'll pay the price. Where did we get off thinking that we were gonna set ourselves free? It's still Jesus. It'll always be Jesus. It'll never stop being the power of Jesus. If his blood is sufficient for your salvation, his blood is sufficient to sustain you through every challenge and every sin and every temptation. Jesus is enough.
So that's why we do it, right there. So, and that's what I get passionate about. Like it's like right there, that like the love of a father. So, Mike, if you could maybe play that song, just like play it softly. But I just wanted to kind of take this time, and I know we're, well, it's okay. Like I know it's getting kind of a little bit later, but if you feel like something just like got you, or if you feel like the presence of God just like calling you and just being like, yeah, like son, daughter, I want you. I created you. You were meant to be mine. You were meant to be my lover. And you have. I just want to kind of take this time, and if you want to get prayer, you can come up here, and if you want to talk to people, all the leaders can, if you guys want to come up.